Hey Soul Tribe, it's Kate and Kerry.
We are so excited to have you hear this new episode. Please review and subscribe at the end. It's free and it helps us keep spreading our message to you, our awesome listener. Thanks so much and enjoy the episode.
Welcome, guys. What's up? What a very special episode that we have in store for you today. Not only the topic, but also that Kerry and I are together celebrating our 1-year anniversary of reuniting. And Kerry came out from California to spend some time in New York with me.
Yes, so excited to be here and doing it together, and it's just super cool, and we're really excited.
Very cool.
And this episode is going to be all about menopause and women's health and perimenopause, which I didn't even know existed until 4 years ago. It's like, who?
Yeah.
And just all the hormone fluctuations that we go through as women and all the different cycles, not just the cycle, right? It's like there's so many cycles that we go through during the month and obviously through our lives that aren't really talked about and haven't been researched, that Kate and I have been delving into and really finding so much valuable information that we want to bring to you.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I feel like before doing this research and finding out all of this current information, it was so taboo to talk about menopause and what women were going through. And like Kerry just said, there was no perimenopause, and we'll go into all of that, what happens in these different phases in our life. But yeah, I just, I didn't have to deal with it until really I hit 40. And that's when I started to go what you would call crazy. And there was like, fair assessment.
Pretty much.
And just, there was nothing, to do. It was just like, oh, yeah. And too, like growing up, the same thing with like getting your period, like the whole like, PMSing and going through all of that. It's like, just like brushed off, blown off. And
Made
like,
a joke.
Yeah, and relax, or like, oh, I'm not gonna go near her today.
Yeah.
It's like,
stay away from mommy.
exactly. And so I think once I hit that age of what is going on with me, why am I all of a sudden so anxious, and things that I would be able to handle easily I was obsessing over. I couldn't get over it. And this has really helped me really find out, really get an understanding of what the hell is going on with my body during this time now.
Yeah, I mean, it's so fascinating, honestly. It's like just reading all the science behind it and the neurology and like the biology and the chemistry of your brain and body and everything that's going on, and the fluctuations in just all those things I just mentioned is like, oh my God, like it's interesting. It's just so fascinating. And it just makes more sense to then do something about it, whether that be, what's it called? Osteopathy or whatever, naturally.
We're gonna keep it simple.
Keep it simple. Taking some berries or taking something else is up to everyone's, discretion, and your own discretion, your own research. But it's just like, wow, there's stuff available that we didn't know was available, and that hasn't been available and wasn't recommended and wasn't available until recently. It's like, you know what? There's some really and crucial findings and research that there's a lot of health out there that we didn't know, and there's misinformation that we thought things like estrogen or progesterone or hormone replacement therapy could really hurt you, and there's so much finding that actually it can really help you.
Right. And doing this research, I do too love that. What do I love? That we also too is that when we do talk about menopause, we are always talking about just what goes down from the neck below and
Waist below.
waist below, because what I was going to say, there's so much that happens to us from the neck up when we're going through these major changes as a woman in, first of all, just puberty, just the first go at when we first start our cycles. What is that? What is that all about? And so much of it was just like, oh, okay, you got your period, now you're a woman. And it's like, here are your sticks or your pads, like whatever you wanted. There was nothing ever explained. And like I said, it was just that it was like, stay away from her today or for the week or whatever.
Unless you had, a mom that researched stuff and all that, but it really was like just quiet stuff and like, oh, you got your period. And in our house, it was pretty quiet.
Yeah.
Right. But it's really cool to find out that like during that time, actually being, in puberty and at that age is like to learn about it now.
Mhm.
So for us to learn, I don't have a daughter, but to be more informative and to pass down this information to whoever does, so that they're learning about, it's not just like you're bleeding this week. There's so much stuff going on throughout the month.
Yeah.
And especially during that time, that if you could learn that as a young girl and then go into preventative measures as you're getting older, to be able to take stuff and like understand like your body, it's such ownership and empowerment on your life as a woman. And it's to give that to young women today is like,
to understand what is going on, and there's no shame about it. There's always like this shame around how which we had nothing to do with as human beings, as a woman, go through biologically.
Like seriously, when I hear the word menopause and I still am like, I still have like, are we allowed to talk about that? Like, it's like, isn't that funny?
Taboo.
It's so taboo. And now it's obviously, becoming less so, but it's like, it's so interesting, the stigma. And it's just, especially saying it to like men, they're like, oh, turn up the music or next time, so it's just, we want to break those barriers and, crash through and take it by the reins and like, no, this is actually an amazing part and time of our lives throughout, and to just take control of it, of like, you know what, this is what I'm going to do, or this is what I'm not going to do, or whatever, because it really is in our hands and something to feel empowered about.
So what the first real help for me finding all of this information was actually listening to Mel Robbins. She did a podcast, and the episode is from PMS to menopause, how to hack your hormones and use science. So she had on her podcast this double board certified doctor, Amy Shaw, medical director, trained at Harvard, Cornell, and Columbia, is an immunologist, leading expert in women's hormones and health and nutrition. So obviously she is studying this on a completely other level than we are. We're literally just doing the homework for you and telling you what our findings is. And this is a very small piece to it. We have no opinion. We're not giving you zero medical advice. This is really just to basically kickstart you into your own research and your own exploration into your own cycle and what the help is out there, what it can really be.
It is just important to stress, like Kate and I are just like, this is fascinating, we want to share this with you. We're not doctors by any means, so listen to us at your own discretion, at your own
exactly
your own peril. But she was really amazing. What were you going to say?
Well, what she was explaining was that up until the 1980s, women doctors, women medical students were not even involved in the studies, in the findings of menopause, of like what it is. They didn't even study it. They didn't study much on anything. And the reason is because this is hilarious. The reason why women were not included in these studies is because we may have been hormonal or may have been pregnant or on our period.
Too emotional.
Too emotional. Okay, so that's cool.
Yeah. Don't
And-
look into what's happening there.
Right.
Wow, this is 50% of the population.
Yeah.
Just close the door for a couple of weeks and then maybe they'll include them, which is interesting because women weren't even included in any
Any medical study.
any medical study since 1960. It started and barely at 1960, and that did not include pregnant women, which is astounding. So any medication out there, any foundings, they didn't know what it would do to a pregnant woman, and that wasn't even on the label. This was not studied for pregnant women. So it's like, take this, but no idea if it would harm you or not, or the baby. That's wild.
That's crazy. You just mean like any other studies, because this is, she was saying, was from the 1980s.
Yeah, 1960s, nothing. Women weren't included in any study.
Right,
It was
but up
only
until
then.
the 80s is when they started to change it.
Oh, it was 80s.
Yes.
Jesus.
I mean, that's like crazy, because the 80s to me is like 4 years ago.
I know.
Isn't that wild?
Yeah, that's so crazy.
So, and that's a good,
Wow.
reminder too, is that when you do go to your doctor and maybe introduce this, whatever you're thinking, whatever you get out of this podcast, or from your own findings, maybe you do want to talk about hormone replacement therapy, which is we're gonna call that HRT. That's what it is called, but so now you know. So if you want to talk about HRT, just know that 9% of doctors in our country, 9% feel comfortable treating a woman going through menopause. So chances are your doctor doesn't have this up-to-date information, could be old information.
Yeah, exactly. And most of it is that, you go and you say, I'm feeling this way. Could I get hormones? They say it causes cancer. No, door closed. Well, there's way more information that we're going to get into. I wanted to say 9% feel qualified, not only comfortable, qualified. They don't have any information. So they're like, I'm not qualified to talk about that.
So true.
Also, what Amy Shaw said was she thought, because she, we gave her credentials, she's has multiple degrees, right?
Mhm.
She thought, maybe I didn't pay attention, which is so humble to even say, right? So she goes to her, really good doctor friend who's a gynecologist and says, did I not pay attention? Like, what happened with the hormone
In medical school.
in medical school with the hormone teachings? I missed it. What did they say? Then the doctor said, they didn't. They did not teach that stuff. We only learned about puberty and pregnancy and barely no like hormone stuff on that. Just you got the period and the ovulation and that's it. That's unbelievable.
It is unbelievable. So what I thought was interesting too is that when we do start our period, right, that is the start of our hormonal cycles. So what's interesting, what I got from Dr. Shaw was from day 1 to day 14, that is when your hormones, we get a surge in our hormones. So that's estrogen and progesterone. And you'll explain
Testosterone.
and a little bit of testosterone, but you'll explain estrogen and progesterone because it's very cool how they explained it. So when you're going through growing up and you're just going through your cycle, that is basically it. You will feel like a little surge of these hormones your first 1 to 14 days of your cycle, and then day 14 to 28 to 32, depending on what your cycle is, it dips a little bit. So not during just a regular cycle, before perimenopause or menopause. It's just these little dips and you will feel PMS. That's what that is.
Which is interesting. It's a mini precursor to full-on perimenopause and menopause is PMS. So we get like a little taste of it. And then that's what perimenopause and menopause becomes.
Yep.
Which is fascinating.
Totally.
Really more perimenopause.
Explain what estrogen and progesterone, what are they?
Yeah, so I'm not a doctor again, but from what I've picked up from Dr. Amy Shaw, which I just love the simplicity of this episode, you really should check it out, where estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone are the three sisters, right? So estrogen is the fun party sister, and like, let's go out, let's have fun.
Social,
Social, just like risky, just like party girl wants to go out and, do it all. And progesterone is the responsible sister. She's like, tone it down a notch. That's not such a good idea. Let's, maybe stay in tonight, has a little more rules, calm, just puts people in check, keeps you in check. And then testosterone is the leader. So it has, think about it, right? So men, as we know, have most of the testosterone, more testosterone than we do. And they're just more, that's why they're able to, be more forceful or have more girth and
aggression
in sports and aggression. Yeah. And just like women are amazing leaders, but it's just like that idea of the testosterone's like the leader, right? It's just like, all right, we got this, let's go, and gives you a lot more energy in your day, like a let's go feeling. That's testosterone.
And so does estrogen, but testosterone is more, it's almost like it's objective. There's like no feeling to it. It's like, hard, a little more hardcore.
Yeah, it's like, let's get this done.
Yeah.
Like, let's go. And estrogen's like, let's go, but like party.
Yeah.
And progesterone is trying to calm them both down.
So why I thought this was such helpful information is because now knowing when our cycles tend to be where we tend to be at our peak and when we start to kind of dip down, how interesting would that, or helpful would that be, knowing this? Because then you can work around like your schedule. So meaning this is really, so you're having your period, like you're on your normal cycle. And then when you hit, could be 35, your 35 to 40-year-old range, perimenopause lasts 10 years. And again, depending on like when you start.
Sometimes longer.
Yeah, well, 35.
20
right.
years.
Right, exactly. But the common overall range is really from 40 to 52. That's really when it really starts. Could be, obviously, I just said, a little younger, could last a little longer.
Yeah.
Mine was 40. And I had the experience of going to a doctor and saying, like, I am crazy. I don't know what changed, what happened. My lifestyle at the time, my kids were really young, so I understood that. But was just so anxious and more wanting to be like introverted and much more cautious. So what that now knowing was the dip in estrogen. I didn't really want to go out. I wasn't so social. The risks were not there. I was completely doubting myself and not having the progesterone. So she's the calm girl. She keeps you level-headed and all of that and not worrying about much. Well, if she dips, you're an anxious mess. And that's exactly what happened to me. And I went to the doctor. I had that experience of them just saying like, oh, no, you are way too young for this. Yes. There's nothing for you to do. Like basically just like suck it up. And I remember at the time too, my friends at that time that I was really close with, which were my son's moms, we were all relatively the same age. And there was 3 of us, and we all at the same time started going crazy together. And there was no real answer. It just really was like, oh my God, like stay indoors, shut up. Like really, it was like, don't say much, don't text much, just don't, it'll be okay. But and then like the day my period came and I was just like, whoa, what was I so worried about? Just so crazy. And now having this
Because some
information-
balancing
Yes.
came in,
Exactly.
which is like, oh, and then you're just like, God, what is wrong with me? Geez, it's like, well, your hormones are fluctuating. Nothing's wrong with you
That's right.
at all. Yeah, exactly. And just like, oh, and everyone, us women just trying to like laugh about it and stuff, or just like, nervously and putting it down and stuff. But it's sort of serious actually, because you know what? They're neuromarkers. It's actually giving you information about the chemistry going on in your brain. And a low estrogen is linked to Alzheimer's disease. Like, this isn't funny, actually. It's quite serious, and our grandma, had Alzheimer's and died. So that is really something that I always think about, like Alzheimer's, it runs in our family. And it's like, well, does it? It could just be a total result of low estrogen, especially back in the day. This was completely not even discussed. So that really hit home, right? And so just to make sure, like, this stuff's really important, to make sure we're having the correct levels going on, going to a doctor, making sure that our blood work's not the best test actually, because our hormones fluctuate so much that it has to be an exact specific time to be able to even tell if they're raised or lowered. So the best test to actually get is a stool test. You can research all that as well, but our point is to go to a doctor, one that's up to date, because this isn't a laughing matter. It really is pretty serious. And once they're in check, it's like, oh my God, I feel like a human again. Because what's sad, it's like after 40, it's like, just forget about your life and your well-being until 65.
Yeah, it's just like, well, this is what you go through. I don't
Yeah.
know what you want me to say. Like, you're a woman and like, that's it. Like, we all do it. We all suffer through basically life.
Yeah.
And like, it's your turn.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And going to the doctor too. That's what was said to me. Like, I just felt crazy. Like, I was just like going crazy. Like, it would just be having like an explosive overreaction where I was like, oh my God.
So that's more levels of testosterone.
More levels of testosterone and way less progesterone and estrogen to like, just be like, fun and feel good. Like, and I didn't want to do anything. I didn't want to do yoga, and I'm like a big yogi, like I like doing my yoga, and I was like, I'm good, so when I was going crazy, and I just went to the doctor and they said that you're too young. And anyway, even if you weren't, all of this stuff causes cancer. So that's that. And I was just like, okay. They're like, eat sweet potatoes. You can't eat that many sweet potatoes, okay? Before first of all, when they say that, it's like you have to look up, you have to eat a wheelbarrow full of sweet potatoes to get a drop of relief.
Well, that's like when they say that, wine is good for you and it reduces resveratrol.
Yeah.
You have to have 250 glasses of wine a day to get to get the benefit of what they're talking about. Like, no. So we have a lot of good, up-to-date, current information for you that, you may want to use and explore further. So what I thought too, with what are alternatives to also help you with, it's not only maybe investigating HRT, hormone replacement therapy, but what this doctor was also talking about was that you can have influence over, now that you know what happens during your cycle with day 1 to 14 and then 14 to 28 to 32.
I did want to say, I know that you found this really interesting and you didn't get to say it, was the 1 to 14 schedule things that were more important if you had like a business thing to do or just decisions to make that were, more in depth. Do that during 1 to 14.
Yeah.
And then 14 to 28 or 32, take it more easy. Don't do major decisions and, big job things like that. Just sort of take it easy and do stuff that you could plan stuff for, and then do the big, intense, in-person stuff 1 to 14.
Exactly. The
That
things
was
that you know that are gonna be, more stressful, even the relationships, if there's something that you have to deal with work-wise, family-wise, friend-wise, whatever, if there's something stressful that that's coming up, try to have it, worked around your peak levels, which is day 1 to day 14.
I also really recommend getting a app like P Tracker. It's free, and when you do your month, it just tells you when you're ovulating. It's not only for pregnancy and how to get pregnant. I follow this and I'm like, oh my God, that now I'm more like I'm gonna PMS. I'm PMSing, and still, like, every month I'm like, I have to lose 5 pounds. And then I'm like, it's water weight, it's PMSing, but it's like we don't know this, but once you get onto it, you're like, oh, I know what's happening.
Yeah,
It's so important to be educated on your body.
it's so important. It's just gonna help us so
It
much.
helps you so much. Okay.
So, what she was talking about was also during, our cycle of day 1 to 14, that is also when you're going to exercise more. You can then eat your more sugary, your more carby kind of foods, be out there more. And when we're not feeling our best is when you can kind of slow that down, kind of be mindful of what your food intake is. You would do less sugary, less starchy foods, and less rigorous exercise, because you would think it would be the opposite because of what you just said, like, what's wrong with me? All of it, that you're not only feeling, as much energy as you usually do, but you're bloated and you're just a little bit more draggy. And so you would think, harder, work, like, all of that, faster, harder. And no, it's not, because then that raises your cortisol levels. And so the stress, we don't handle stress well from day 14 to 28, from the middle to the end of our cycle. So like, back off, do the lighter exercises. That's going to help you, and physically, obviously, too.
Yeah, I mean, just American culture in particular is always just like, don't ever slow down and rest. And it's like, no, we're getting out of all of that. Your body is literally talking to you too. And that's what I've learned to do, is not fight the communication going on. It's like, I am tired. I'm tired, and you just need to rest, and take that time to rest and do light things. Yeah, and treat yourself well.
Yeah.
What were you going to say?
Well, this we want to start to pay attention with really is when we start perimenopause, because that, from what happens from our just normal menstrual cycle, from the first period that we get up until whenever yours starts. Mine was 40, my perimenopause. When perimenopause starts is when the hormones start to really fluctuate. So some months you're getting a good dose of the higher dose of the hormones, and some months you're getting a splatter of them. So you're like overdose, or you're really low dose. This is when the body is starting to change. So those are when we want to start to look at our diet, our exercise, our schedules, all the more. I mean, I totally would have done this growing up.
I know.
Too.
That's what I'm saying. If
Yeah.
the younger women can get this now, so in control of your
rocking
life. So we're happy to be sharing it.
Yeah, and it's when hot flashes come into play.
Yeah, and night sweats.
Yes, so that is because, so this is interesting, the hypothalamus center, that is what regulates our central thermostat. So it makes so much sense. If all of these things our hormones are out of whack, then our temperature is going to be totally thrown off. It's as if someone just goes to the thermostat and just jacks it from 60 to 80, which I used to do all the time. Let me just see something. What happened? Is it? Sorry, you guys, we thought we lost you.
So jacked from 60 to 80, it's just like, you're gonna be hot,
Yeah.
right?
And what I was gonna say, which I used to do all the time in my house, it would be freezing and I'd be like, let me just turn it 40 degrees up.
Yeah.
Oh my God, so sorry, guys.
Oh, that's Kelly.
Yeah. So, anyway, so that's why we're all thrown off, and HRT can help us with the elevated temperature rise. That's like what HRT is really helpful for.
Yeah, and in particular, so taking estrogen and progesterone, obviously it balances you out to take you out of these symptoms. And I've noticed I've been taking estrogen and progesterone in like June 7th. So today is whatever, but it works immediately. And I just noticed like my mood isn't so, there's something different. It's like, like when it's even a little different than PMS. I just feel like it's just a little more off. And you're just like, something is, I know some things can be wrong, but something's wrong, right? That's what it is. And it's just like, okay, that is when I knew it was perimenopause and started to get some help. And I was with a great doctor who was informed. My first one wasn't. And then I said, I really want to talk to somebody who is more open to discussing this and who has a little more information on it. And she did refer me to her colleague, which is in the same office. And oh my God, it was so great. She still, though, it wasn't like, oh, sure, here you go. She was like, wanted to know, gave me like an interview, like what's going on? Because, I mean, you also don't want to be taking it if you don't need to, but not for health risk reasons. They've really found that it can be and is and has been known to help our health in all sorts of ways, and to really find out, actually 30 years of research, that there's no association of estrogen replacement and breast cancer. So I know this is a big deal and very sensitive topic to a lot of people. Mm-hmm. And I mean, even me hearing about it was like, I was like, well, what about the cancer, right? And in Kate and I's family, we have heart disease in our family. So funny enough, heart disease was actually more the cause of, something we could have rather than breast cancer. Do you know that? So way less risk. There's actually no risk. Research is changing that it is actually quite safe for women. This is, I'm quoting this from people. This isn't just from me. This is from Dr. Fiona Lovely that was on Huberman's podcast. Actually quite safe for women to take estrogen, even with a history of breast cancer in the family. Medical oncologists are actually using estrogen now to treat women with breast cancer. That's astounding, right? And it actually controls menopause symptoms in most women and perimenopause, reduces the risk of heart disease, reduces hip fractures, reduces the chances of Alzheimer's and colon cancer. And like I said earlier, lower estrogen is actually linked to Alzheimer's and the cause of it. So there's fascinating information. That's why we're just like, oh my God, this is so wild, because women, we have suffered. My mom, right? Like our grandmothers.
Yes. Friends, older friends.
And now, yeah. And like I'll even mention it to friends like, oh, I feel crazy or off. I'm like, it's probably perimenopause. And they're like, what's perimenopause? We don't know. It's really wild.
Well, doctors don't even know, because
Yeah.
it just happened recently. It happened a while ago when I hit 40. There was nothing to do. It was just like suffer through it. But then it also just happened recently. Like my last gynecologist appointment was when I was looking into this stuff. So I went to her saying, I really think I'm in perimenopause. And it was totally shunned. Like she's just, you're way too young for that. And there, and that, not knowing enough of this information, of course it's going to shut you down. It shut me down. And so I just went home and just gained all of this information, wanting to give it to you too. But it is for me. I need a next step and a new doctor, because it is important.
I do need to say, estrogen, it depends on the type. This is very important.
Yes.
Bioidentical hormones have been proven and researched to show no harm to us at all. It was the chemically made ones of estrogen that cause cancer.
Mhm.
And some of the findings were misled and misrepresented in what they found. It was a completely messed up study, but estrogen, there's forms of patch and cream that are healthy, and it's estradiol, and you have to make sure it's bioidentical. And progesterone is progestin, and the generic is progesterone, and that's a pill. But you have to make sure to the doctor and say bioidentical on both.
Yes.
Testosterone now, I haven't taken testosterone. I may not, I don't know. I'm feeling out my energy. I'm seeing if it was just,
Mhm.
if it's still this case or estrogen, progesterone's enough. But testosterone, you have to very much marker because you don't want to grow hair on your chest and,
Punch people in the face.
no Rocky Balboa.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's very little, but it can very much help if you're like, I don't want to do anything anymore. Like I just don't care. I don't want to go out. And that's missing a lot of the energy in that hormone. But that again has to be more, kept tabs and make sure you're taking the right dosage.
It's so crazy because even listening to all of these neuroscientists and these highly decorated doctors and, experts of all of this stuff, the woman anatomy or whatever now, I am still skeptical. I think it was just so seared in our brains that it's such a cancer causer. And it is amazing that it's this new, relevant, up-to-date study.
30 years though.
30 years.
New coming out.
Yes, but that, what was I going to say was that it's quite the opposite, is that the estrogen, hormone therapy can actually alleviate these, getting cancer. And actually estrogen is used for people that are actually with cancer that, again, do your own studies, but this is so fascinating to me, but I am still reluctant. I still have that, God, because it's scary as hell.
Yeah,
I mean, this is life and death stuff that, it's just, it's your comfort level, and it's for you to kind of just try on and think about and study over time and then do what you will with it, which is what I'm doing. That's my prescription for myself. So,
and it makes sense. I mean, that's what we've been told for up until right now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like, of course it's going to be scary. It's like a big threat.
yeah.
And come to find out there is no threat. But again, do your own research to make your own self comfortable and stuff. This is just amazing stuff that we're finding that we want to share with everyone, because it's been known to be so relieving.
Of course.
It's so helpful. And it's like, because women, we've been pushed aside. The whole thing is male dominated hierarchy, with men. So it's like, we just weren't researched and we weren't looked into, and we weren't, the facts weren't known. And so it's like, now it's coming out like, no, women matter. We actually are a person and we do count and we are included. And that's why this.
And we're biologically different.
Completely, totally different.
To be a man, you don't go through any of this.
Yeah. So unbelievable. But this is what I was saying, women are 8 times more likely to die from heart disease than breast cancer. And there's no evidence of transdermal estrogen and or bioidentical progesterone increase the risk of breast cancer, osteoporosis, heart disease, heart attacks, strokes, or dementia. Is that amazing?
Yes. It's definitely amazing. It's just very comforting. So then going into what is the difference then from perimenopause to menopause? Menopause is described as when you go for 12 months without a period. Once that happens, then you are in the stage of menopause. And what's the difference from perimenopause to menopause? When you hit menopause, there is a huge dip, like depletion permanently of these hormones. There's completely less estrogen, much less progesterone, much less testosterone, and that's like your base level now. So,
and also why this is so important, osteoporosis. When we have less hormones in our bodies, they protect our bones, right?
that's estrogen.
Which is wild. So we're having less, and it's like, oh, we break our hips so much easier.
Yeah.
You know, all of it. It's actually all of it, because, well, men have estrogen, by the way. So they decrease too. And that's where the hip fractures come in, and bone density, disintegration, and all this stuff. So it's just amazing just how important it is for our overall health and our brain chemistry.
Yes.
Good God, that's why you're going crazy.
Right.
You have lack of hormones and the chemicals needed in order to feel normal and function. It's when they're less, you're agitated and you're not working right.
That's what they said, is that there's such a tight correlation between how our hormones fluctuate and our brain function.
Oof.
They are like this. And now to not know about it, and again, just to be called by ourselves, of course, the outside was calling us that too, but crazy, just like I feel crazy, and like that was it.
That's why.
Yeah, that's why.
And Kate said like this, if someone's not watching YouTube, it was hand in hand, like in mesh fingers.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, so you're going to go into, so menopause is having none of it. Want to say as well,
Or very low,
very
consistently.
Yes. And so HRT, hormone replacement therapy, is done during perimenopause, still having your period, right? And then after, so say you're listening and you're like, oh, well, I'm done, I'm already in menopause, it's still very helpful.
Oh my gosh.
So you can take hormone replacement therapy in menopause as well.
Yeah. Because you're still going through the hot flashes and the night sweats.
Yeah, and you have no hormones.
Yeah. Or a very, very low base level.
Yeah.
And so that's why people only really speak about menopause, is because, those are the major changes. You're feeling that.
Yeah.
Regardless. I mean, no one's not
There's no
getting
way
past it.
Yeah.
It's just like saying, like, there's two universal truths, that women will go through puberty and women will go through menopause.
Yeah.
That is like, no one's getting off on that. We're all going through it. So no, it's just been so fascinating. I think too, I do love also not only hormone replacement therapy, but taking more control into our overall lifestyle. And that's with exercise, that's with food, that's with sleep.
Ooh.
Why we can't sleep?
Why we can't sleep? I mean, it's unbelievable. It's just looking at this Facebook post, and it's like, God, it like breaks my heart. It makes me like mad too. I'm like, God damn it. This woman saying, I can't sleep. I can only sleep more than a couple hours. And another one saying, not in this post I told you about, but that she's like, I'm up all night, head spinning with anxiety. I'm thinking of this, I'm thinking I can't sleep at all. It's like, hey, that's hormones. That's chemical imbalance.
Yes.
Chemical imbalance of some sort, most likely linked to hormones.
More likely than not.
Yeah, and that it can be alleviated. It's just like, oh, it's so annoying. But that's what we're here to try to open the door and just open it up with.
They said too, though, to really help you with sleep is there's 3 things. And this also, I believe, came from Dr. Shaw, Amy Shaw. And it's 3 things to help us with sleep is a cold room. So this I've already been doing, and it's been really helpful, is that our body temperature has to drop 1% in order to fall asleep. That's why, have you been cold in my house?
It's been just right.
Perfect.
But I think it's interesting. That's interesting.
Isn't that so amazing?
Yeah.
So keep it cool. She was saying, and I agree with, this has helped me, is 68 to 67 degrees. So at night, a cool room, and dark, pitch black. Any type of light, ambient light, really messes with our hormones and our circadian rhythm.
Love that.
So I love that. And then routine. So the same time and how you wind down is critical. The routine of doing that every night, even if you were getting to bed later, say it was, 11 or 11:30, whatever, so later, as long as you're doing that consistently in a routine, that is what you're looking for.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that they were saying, instead of such vigorous exercise like we were talking about, walking. Walking is so healthy and so good for you, so good for us. So sleep, numero uno, and how you get it, you have to be in balance, however you find ways to do that. I just think it's great, just taking control of and being a woman, learning what that is. What does that mean? Like, wow, like we're fascinating. It's unbelievable what our bodies have been designed to do and are capable of doing. So taking care of it is like, let's do this. Let's do that, right? And I definitely, just to give personal experience. So it's like, well, I really have felt a lot better. It has been safe, if anyone wants to hear that experience, it's really helped me a lot. And I get unbelievable sleep.
Then what we looked into too with Dr. Fiona Lovely, she has a podcast that was, I think the podcast was just called How to Talk to Your Doctor about menopause.
Her podcast is called Not Your Mother's Menopause. And the episode is 102, How to Talk to Your Doctor.
Awesome. That's great, because I do love this thought with going to our doctors, and you would think, like we were just saying, that we're like pissed about it, that all of this good information and valid information and just much more current information is kept from us, but it's also kept from our doctors. So I love how she says that our doctors are not scrolling TikTok and Instagram looking for these solutions, looking for what is the answer, what is going on with my body, as much as we are. So chances are they're not going to be up to date with this information. They're probably still going to be with the thought that hormones, estrogen, progesterone causes cancer. And trust me, I still have to wrestle with that. I'm still working all of that out. But if we arm ourselves with this information and have more of an understanding that our doctors were not ever given the chance to study it.
They're not equipped with it. They're not withholding it. They don't know it.
Yeah. Unless they're, on their own, like a continuing education, and they're going out and they're really seeking this, which
they should be, and more will be. But
chances
are your current one doesn't. You'll have to look for one that does.
Yeah. Which is what I'm in the middle of doing. But.
Yeah. I do want to give a shout out to Dr. Sarah Gottfried on, if you're on Instagram, you can look at her at Sarah Gottfried MD. She's a really great resource, and so is Fiona Lovely. She's on Instagram as well, and Dr. Huberman's podcast, and he has an Instagram as well. Dr. Huberman, he's just amazing. He's just amazing. Neuroscientist, blowing shit out of the water. New info. So hopefully this was helpful, right? How do you feel? And we're going to wrap it up.
Yeah.
The kids are at the pool, it's pouring rain, and we're just ignoring their calls and just putting it to voicemail. And they're like, it's raining. So we love you guys. Hope this was helpful. Let us know, what's your experience? I would love to hear that. What's your experience? What are you coming at? What are you coming with and all this stuff, and what are you gonna do? All that. Love to hear it.
Yeah. Reach out to us on Instagram, always DM us with topic suggestions, any questions, comments, support, whatever. We're here. We got your back. Get Soulsessed today. Yeah. Bye, guys.
Yay, love doing it together.
I know.
Oh my God.
Stay tuned, guys. We are thrilled to be here with each other, and feel so privileged to try and carry a message of hope and positive change to one other person out there. So please subscribe and review and share our podcast to reach that person. And follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Soulsessed Twins and get daily inspo and connect with us.
Let's build this community together.
100%. So come back next week and we'll see you then.
Get soul-sessed with us, Soul Tribe.
That's it. Bye, guys.